All right, Dr. Anthony Fauci finally reversing course on the controversial COVID-era push to keep schools closed.
I kept on saying, close the bars, open the schools as quickly and as safely as you possibly can. But initially, to close it down was correct.
I'm not talking about initially.
Keeping it for a year was not a good idea.
So that was a mistake in retrospect. We will not repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Huh. Our next guest sits on the LA Unified School Board, which was closed for more than a year, despite his calls to reopen earlier.
Nick Melvoin joins us now. Nick, your thoughts about Anthony Fauci suddenly realizing the schools should be open. Does he not realize we watched him do nothing to get those schools open?
Well, and unfortunately, it wasn't just Dr. Fauci. In California, local school boards were prevented from reopening without the sign-on off of our teachers union, who refused to for over a year. And so I saw then the harmful effects of closures on kids, but the mental health effects actually predate COVID, which is why yesterday I'm really proud of what we did to ban student cell phones. But yes, kids need to be in school in person with other kids without their cell phones, interacting with one another. Anyone who was on the ground in schools could have seen this and did see this and did try to speak out at the time.
Nick, he said in that soundbite, I kept saying to open schools. I kept saying to open schools. We would have been jumping for joy if he had ever said that. Listen to this. This is a flashback of what he said.
That right now, we have to start implementing both containment and mitigation. And what was done when you do closing the school is mitigation. If you have a situation in which you don't have a real good control over an outbreak and you allow children to gather together, they likely will get infected. And if they get infected, the likelihood that they will bring the infection home.
So there he is. He says in the beginning, but he continued to say it throughout. And that's why schools like your district decided to close, because they were looking to the teachers unions and the experts in Washington, like Dr. Fauci. Brown University did a study in kids whose schools were closed and met online for 2020 through 2021, that school year. They performed 13% lower on math and 8% lower in reading. And Nick, are you still seeing the impacts of COVID?
We are, both academically, and I think what keeps me up at night as a former teacher and now school board member is the mental health effects that this had on kids. And partially it's because they were home, they were isolated, they were on their screens, which is why it's so important to get kids in school physically and off their cell phones, which is what the LA Unified School Board voted to do yesterday. But yes, we are still seeing the deleterious effects on kids' mental and physical health from these closures, which is why I hope more school districts will take the lead from LA and ban student use of cell phones during the school day, which I'm excited that the board passed yesterday, and really leading the country on this idea to get kids back to being kids again.
Right. Fauci could have used his star power, and he had plenty of it, and power with the administration to lean on your unions in order to get those schools back open. Then we found out 6 feet apart didn't matter at all. No one understands where that came from. But your ban on student cell phones is huge. When can we see this actually done in the classroom?
This will go into effect next school year. We're working with our schools right now to implement it with cell phone lockers, with pouches, and really the idea to get the kids off the screen, get kids off of their social media apps. You know, the U.S. Surgeon General just said this week that there should be a warning on social media apps for teens. But yes, I mean, I think too often the society, and it's what you were talking about earlier with the school closures, we think about the effects of adults, like with schools and with COVID, and not the effects of kids. And people were saying in that case, you know, you got to protect adults who are working in schools. Well, what about the children? What about their effects? What about their being home for a year? What about their effects on social media and with their cell phones? And so yesterday we took a step. So starting in the next school year, students will have phone-free days, and I think their academics will improve, their mental health will improve, their physical health will improve. And again, we can just let kids be kids. Right,
and if one kid gets banned, it's a problem. But if everyone's got to put down their phones, I think they'll say, thank you, parents. Thank you, officials.
And that's the idea. And I told our teachers and principals, let me be the bad cop. Right now, the enforcement has been so discreet, and a lot of teachers are spending more and more time policing this. They're not able to teach. And so I want to remove the onus on teachers and principals, let the school board take the blame for this. And I do think that parents and teachers and principals will thank us. And I hope other districts and schools will follow suit.
They are. Even parents over here on the East Coast are thanking you, hoping that other states follow suit. So thank you so much, Nick. It is great. It's easy to tell your kid, you're just not allowed to have it. You're going to get in trouble if you do it. Not our fault. You can't do it. No other child is doing it either.
We'll have you back next year to talk about the success of this program. Thanks, Nick.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.